Should be good. Should be good. Let's just triple check that we're live and broadcasting. Should be good. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chaotic Good Sports. Oh, let's go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the debut episode of Chaotic Good Sports. Thank you so much for joining us here on this Tuesday evening. We're rocking. Shout out to Daniel for that awesome intro. And so before we jump into this, and we are going to jump right into this, the charity that we are going to be fundraising for tonight is NAMI. They are a phenomenal charity. We've done work with them before. They are the nation's largest grassroots organization to help support those who are afflicted with mental health and their families. They have educational programs. They are represented in every single state. They have chapters all over the country. Cannot recommend it because you're all crazy. We have already raised over $433 and a word has not even been said. So 100% of the proceeds are going to that. I appreciate you so much for tuning in. And now, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, my guest tonight is former Green Bay Packers tight end, Brandon Bostick. Brandon, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. I appreciate you.
Hey, Tom. Thanks for having me, man.
I'm so glad that we could finally connect. Our paths have finally crossed. How you doing tonight?
Yes, sir. I'm doing good. I had a good day today. How about you?
Yeah, I got a good day. It's pretty good, man. It's pretty good. I'm really excited just to sit down, kind of just talk about your story, talk about football and kind of everything that's come during it, after it, and to kind of get things started. You grew up in South Carolina. Yeah?
Yeah, born and raised. I grew up there and I went to high school
Born and raised
there.
South Carolina.
Went to
One of
college
five,
there.
if I'm not mistaken?
One of three. I'm the oldest kid.
One of three. Okay, beautiful. When it comes to football, I gotta ask, we're going way, way back. At what point did you even start to develop an interest in football? And was it an immediate, I want to play this? Or was it just like as a viewer enjoying it casually before you decided to jump into the crazy world of football?
Well, I started playing when I was 5, so it's something I've always done. I grew up doing. It's something I always wanted to do. Like I had those childhood dreams, like I want to make it to the NFL. I grew up in South Carolina, so when I grew up, we didn't have a team yet. The Panthers didn't come about until later. I forget the exact date, but they didn't come about until later. So I want to go to the NFL. I didn't think it would ever happen. So I grew up as a football fan. That's something I always wanted to do.
And of course, you know, in the NFL, you played as a tight end. Was that a position that you gravitated towards? Because like that in of itself, just being a football tight end is difficult, right? You have the blocking schemes. You had to learn how to catch now. Like you have to do a million things. Is that something you were gravitated towards, or was there a different position when you originally started to play?
Well, to be honest, I didn't play tight end until I got signed by the Packers. So I didn't start playing tight end until 2011. I grew up playing defense. My high school year, I played receiver. My 4 years of college, I played receiver. So I didn't transition to tight end until my rookie camp with Green Bay. They called me, and I finally got a tryout. And hey, we're gonna try you as a tight end. I'm like, hey, I've never been in a 3-point stance, but this is my chance to live my lifelong dream. I'll do whatever it takes, to make it. So
Yeah.
I just kind of just figured it out.
And in that point, like growing up, you're saying you're starting to play football when you're 5 years old, right? So getting involved pretty darn early. What is that mindset as you're still a kid? You know, you're growing up, you're getting into your teens, eventually going to go to college and play football. Where is the mindset where you're like, oh, like this is good, this is my thing? Because it takes a certain mindset to even jump into that, right? Just the commitment, the sacrifice that is made, and it's like, okay, if we're gonna like really try this and put in the work, we got to go all in.
Yeah, I didn't realize that till my junior year of college. So growing up, I just played all 3 sports. I played basketball, football, and baseball. So I played all 3 of those until I got to like middle school. Then I got hit in the eye with the baseball. My baseball career ended. I was done. So that was like 7th grade. So I played both until high school, and then I got to college. I played 1 year of college basketball even. So I played both until I got to the point, but I didn't realize I could go to the NFL until maybe my junior year. I had a really good game. I had 11 catches for 322 yards and 3 touchdowns. So when I had that game, I'm like, okay, like I can maybe play NFL football. I wasn't sure. I'm like, I'll give it a shot. So that was my story growing up.
I mean, that's pretty crazy too, because it's funny just talking to other players. It depends on when they got involved with it. You have folks that are like 10 years old and they're like, okay, every single day, like I'm working out, I'm training, I'm going to do this because I know like this is where I want to be. So to go to your junior year and then be like, oh man, like this is actually a possibility. Did that put like what was the feelings of that going through it? Is that more of like intrinsic internal pressure, or is it more of, oh man, like now I'm gonna go all in and give this my all to try and make it to the NFL?
Yeah, well, I went to Newberry College. It's a Division II school, so
Yes.
not many people made it to the NFL. We had one other person before I got there, which is my best friend, Ron Parker. He played 8 years for the Chiefs, so my NFL dreams were there, but I didn't really think I can do it. Like, who make it to the NFL from my school? So
Sure.
there were just thoughts and just fleeting thoughts. Like, I can try it and do it, but once I really owned into, like you said, I put in the work daily and really focused my mind. Like, this is what I'm doing. I
Yeah.
left. I left after my last season, so I didn't go back for the spring semester. So I went straight to training. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. I didn't graduate college. Like, this is what I'm doing.
Sure.
So I didn't really lock into football to maybe my senior year, like after my senior season.
Yeah, and you mentioned you're undrafted free agent. The Packers give you a call. They're like, "Hey, bud, you want to come for a tryout?" And we're going to try you out as tight. That has to
I'm
be.
like, where's Wisconsin?
Yeah,
Like, where's that at?
exactly.
Like, I've never been heard of Green Bay. All I heard was like the T-Pain song, like Wisconsin. I'm like, oh, I guess that's where it's at. I'm going there. That was like my second time being on an airplane. Never played a position and never even been in the state of Wisconsin. So I had so many things stacked up against me, I
Yeah,
guess.
I mean that's a pretty wild way to even get into the NFL, right? I mean, what is
Yeah,
that call like? Because you're saying you're locking in, junior senior year of like this is the goal, right? I'm trying to do
yeah.
this. You get that call, and it's, hey, come to Green Bay, Wisconsin for a tryout. We're gonna try out as tight end. Is there any relief? Is there elation that comes with that? Or is it, all right, I guess I got to find out how to play tight end real quick?
Yeah, that's what it was. Like, I guess I gotta figure out how to play tight end. Like you said, I never played a position before, and like just the whole process. Like everyone wants to get drafted. Like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get drafted. Like the draft comes, I don't get my name called.
Yeah,
So then my phone rings like, hey, we want to try you out for the team. Not that we don't want to sign you, we want to try you out. I'm like, okay, so I got to go there for a 3-day mini camp and just try out. And then like I didn't even get signed. They flew me home after that. So
yep.
I didn't get a call until like 2 weeks later. Someone got hurt. Like, we're gonna put you on this injured list. Like if someone get hurt, then we'll call you, and you just come. So I didn't get that call until someone got injured. So my whole draft process was just stressful and sad. So then I finally got the call like, oh, we're gonna play you at tight end. I'm like, bruh, like I can't like, all right, let's go. Like let's just go with it. Let's go. I'll play it. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, because you get signed in May 2012, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
So it's around
Yeah.
May. At that point, that phone call where it's like, hey, we're bringing you on the squad, is that, oh man, all the work that you've put into it, you've been playing football since you were 5 years old. Was that a sense of like, holy crap, I did it? Or was there so much panic and pressure to be, oh, now I have to live up to this expectation. I met this goal, but now this story's just beginning. How do you balance that? What are the feelings going through at that time when you're getting that call?
I think I had a lot of confidence and I worked really hard to get to that point. So it didn't matter what position I played. I was going to just figure it out. So, um, and I knew I could run and catch. I was fast. I was a receiver. So I always went against cornerbacks. So I'm like, I can run routes against safeties and linebackers. So I can do that part. I just needed to get physical, learn how to block. I just need to gain a little more weight and figure out the technique of it. So I'm like, I can do that. I can figure it out. I can be coached on that. Like you can be coached on those things. And I feel like I had some things that you couldn't coach, like my speed and my
Sure.
size and my athleticism. So I guess it was just a combination of both. So I just had to figure out how to do all the dirty work the tight end does. But I was happy. I was happy to get signed by the Packers. I
Yeah.
was happy to just make it to the NFL. Like I said, no one ever did it but one other person. So it was a big point for me and a big point for my school.
By the way, first person from your school to catch an NFL touchdown. So
Yeah, for sure.
listen, we're
That's
rocking
big.
that. I saw we made the Hall of Fame over there. I saw it. Let's go.
Yeah, I
Alma
did.
mater.
I did.
We're rocking.
I appreciate that, Tom.
Of course, man. I mean, like that's something to be so proud of, right? Of course, now you're like reflecting on this, and this is, oh boy, 12 years ago now,
Yeah.
right? Of like when that happens. But how many people can say that they worked for the NFL, they made it into the NFL, they caught touchdown passes in the NFL? Like that is something to have a lot of pride in. when you're walking through, Green Bay, Wisconsin, you're walking through Lambeau Field, you see your locker with your name on it, you got a helmet. Was that just like a surreal experience, or is it, hey, we have to compartmentalize a little bit because it's business, like we're here to work?
Yeah, it's definitely a surreal feeling just to walk in there and just to feel the feeling, feel the love, feel all the energy. Then, like you said, you have to like realize it's work, it's not business. And if you want to stay here, then you need to perform. So if you want to stay and enjoy all that good stuff they have there, then you need to put in the work and perform. So I just try to keep that mindset and perform as long as I could and the hard as I could while I was there.
Yeah. I mean, you also come from a background where, like, my man, you had to work for it, right? In terms of undrafted guy, walking onto the squad and seeing like, hey, walk into a tryout and we'll see what happens. It's not a first round draft pick where it's like, all right, there's these expectations. Even if you flounder for a little bit, there's a little bit of a leash, we'll give you some leeway. You're just like, hey, I got to work every single day. And that leads up to November of 2013, where you catch your first NFL touchdown pass by one Scott Tolzien.
Yeah, my boy Scott Tolzien.
We remember Scott Tolzien.
Against the Eagles.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have his autograph somewhere from one of the random training camps I went to in Green Bay. What is that like? Because that has to be crazy, because you're going from you played defense originally, you're going from wide receiver, you transition to tight end, and now you've caught your first NFL touchdown. Like, the moment that you catch the ball, you look down, and you're like, oh God, I did it. Like, I didn't drop it, nothing like that. What is that emotion like? Because I have to imagine there's few things in life that beat that.
There's so much excitement, they like you're in the hole and they call the play. So you're getting the ball. Like you have a good chance of getting the ball. And I ran like an out and up. So it's kind of like a trick play. Then I just went up the sideline and I caught it. And once I caught it, I was like, there was a guy in front of me, like, there's no way you're stopping me.
No.
I had to go like 2 more yards. I'm like, there's no way. And he kind of like hit me. I just kind of dove in. I just remember everyone going, rah. I looked up and I just threw the ball in there. And of course I did the Lambeau leap. So I just ran over and just jumped up in there. Just a crazy feeling. So I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that feeling. I'll never forget actually jumping in Lambeau. So
yeah,
it was definitely a surreal feeling. I haven't had kids yet. They said the craziest feeling is having a kid. But that's the craziest thing for me, scoring a touchdown at Lambeau.
I mean, anyone could have a kid, It was an NFL touchdown. I'm just saying, kids are cool, man. Like, kids are cool. But I mean,
I feel that.
that has to be such an awesome feeling. And again, it's the culmination, right, of all the work that you've put into this point. Yeah. You're talking about 5 years old, you're playing in the backyard, you're dreaming about catching a touchdown pass in the NFL. And here you are, one of the very few people to do it. You did it, man. Like, after that, like, was there some reflection after that game? I hope you kept the ball, or at least the ball.
I still have the ball. I have the ball here, actually.
Hey, there we go, baby. We came prepared for the meeting.
Actually, it says, yeah.
There it is. That 22-yard reception.
22-yard reception. November 10th, 2013.
I love it, man. Because that's something, and it's another thing, right? Like, they can't take it away from you.
Can't take it.
Regardless of how the career would go from there, you're just like, hey, I scored an NFL touchdown. I made it on an NFL roster. Like, I was able to do these things that some people just dream about. Talking about your school, only one other person from your alma mater has made it to that point. Like, was there a point either like sitting in the locker room or, going back to your room or anything like that where you're like, whew, all right, yeah, I did it.
I think, it's funny. While you're in it, you don't have those thoughts. Like, you don't think that you're this and that. So now that I'm out of it and I'm reflecting on it, like you said, I see a lot of that. I still get those feelings. But of course, I can reflect back and put myself like, oh, like, that was a dope moment at Lambeau. And I see pictures and I see stuff, but like when you're in it, you're just so focused on like the next play. The mindset, the next play. Like, cheer a little bit, then you got to go on special team because this field goal, you got to block. So you get to celebrate your accomplishments for a little bit. Maybe after the game, then the next day is on to the next team, on to the next game. So I'm pretty sure I enjoyed it while happy. I felt all the love. We won the game, so it was a lot of love and it was a good feeling. So I enjoyed it.
What was it like to be on an NFL roster, especially like in the locker room compared to college, right? Because there has to be a litany of differences in terms of just like the way that the vibes and like how the coach is going to run it, in terms of just your teammates and who you're playing with. Did you find that like there was that camaraderie? Because I know I've read some interviews you were talking about like that brotherhood of the NFL, but there's
so big.
It's like a double-edged sword, right? Because it's like, okay, yeah, there's that camaraderie, we're on the team, etc. But then, if you don't make connections with your players or, your teammates, what have you, maybe it's a little bit more difficult to connect because, again, you're coming in as an undrafted guy. I'm sure there's expectations that are there too. Some guys were drafted. What was that feeling of like being in that locker room? And especially after catching your first touchdown, there has to be like a little bit of an acceptance of like, all right, like you got one.
Yeah. And, like it's kind of like anything at work. You kind of earn your I guess your keep. Like you earn your respect, you earn all that from your teammates. So just to even be in that point, once I was on practice squad, just steady working hard, steady improving. So people see that. They see your hard work, they see the work you put in. So when you're in the game, like people know that, okay, this guy's legit. So it just kind of gives you that credibility. And just coming from, like you said, a small school, it kind of just gave me that respect.
Sure.
And I caught a touchdown. It just did a lot for me. It's kind of just gave me just so much respect and credibility on the team. And throughout the locker room, you get to, I feel like when you're there, like I was like the last person on the roster, so you're like a camp body. Like no one really cares about you, no one really knows about you. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to earn your respect. You're kind of in this back locker room that no one really knows, and you have this weird number. Like you're just there. You're just a camp body, just an extra person in case they need you. So once you get past that and you kind of earn that, get to change your number. You move on the depth chart. You start to play more special teams.
Yeah.
You kind of earn the respect of your teammates and your coaches.
The 2014 season, right? Packers are pretty damn good that year. You catch your first touchdown pass from Aaron Rodgers that year, right? In November. Did that hold a different place? Because like now we're separating hairs here. You catch your first NFL touchdown, shout out Scott Tolzien, right? And it's your first, you can't ever replicate it. And then you catch one from a future Hall of Famer in Aaron Rodgers. Was there a difference in the way that you either reflected on it, approached it, did it hit differently, or, was it again of like, damn, I got another one now?
Yeah, so I remember that game. We were playing the Bears. We were beating them pretty bad. Everyone was scoring touchdowns, so that was a crazy game. But just to see him, like you said, we were in the formation, goal line formation, and I was the third string tight end. So it was one on the left, one on the right, and I was behind that guy. So we ran like a crossing route, and the ball kind of just came, and I don't know who he was throwing it to me, or was he throwing it to Richard Rodgers? But I just like, I'm throwing my hands out there. I'm getting this because I'm like, you don't really get too many chances to catch a touchdown or pass from Aaron Rodgers. So I'm just grabbing this. So I grabbed the ball and fell down and I scored. So it was definitely a surreal feeling. Like to see pictures of it, I still have pictures here, and just to know that I'm forever on that list of the players that scored a touchdown on Aaron Rodgers. So that's a great list to be on. It's always cool to see my 86 on there, and it show like
man,
the number of touchdowns Aaron Rodgers thrown to all the players, and my name is like one on the bottom. So it's always cool to see things like that and reflect on stuff like that.
Yeah, there's all the ones like Jordy Nelson, Devontae, so like my number's right there, man.
My number was on there on the bottom. You also see Bostick 86-1.
And again, it's another thing of like they can't take it away from you, right? And so that 2014 season's got to be a bit special too, because you're definitely contenders. When you signed, they won a Super Bowl a couple years prior at that point, and it's 2014. Was there a remarkable or any kind of discernible difference in that locker room as you start getting closer to the playoffs, as you realize like, oh, this team it's special. This team is good and they're ready to compete. Did that change any of the ways either the interactions in the locker room went, or just as, you approached, your day-to-day, knowing that you were on a team that had that kind of potential?
No, that's a great question, Tom. Reflect on it. We never changed what we did. We just kind of stayed who we were and just stayed true to who we were. We just kept getting better every week. We had Mike McCarthy as a coach. He's a great head coach. So he just kind of just prepared us every week. And we was at that towards the end of the year, we were just humming on all cylinders. So we were just preparing. We're healthy. So we had a great team. We just needed to get better every week, and that's what we did. So we just kept that momentum going. We played against some big teams. We beat some pretty good teams that year. So I think we had the confidence. We just needed to stay healthy and keep rolling. And that's what we did.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to talk about it from the fan perspective, right? You're going into Seattle, and at that point, Seattle is like the best of the best, the Legion of Boom, right? Their defense is so insanely good. The Packers are underdogs. You talk about this mentality of just like, hey, business as usual, just like do your work, boom, 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 day by day. And McCarthy's running the ship at that point. 2014, you got a defense going that year.
Yeah.
Heading into Seattle, like what were the vibes in the locker room before that game? Because Seattle is a hostile place to play. It is an insanely loud stadium. Are you walking in with like a chip on your shoulder, like as a collective team, saying like, okay, like let's go in and punch these guys in the mouth? Or is it again just block out all the noise, it's business as usual? Because I find that coaches and players will give different answers. A lot of times like coaches will be like, oh yeah, we hear nothing from the outside. You know, it's just day by day, just got to go through our process. In the locker room and the reality of it, is there a, oh man, like we're one game away from the Super Bowl. We come in here and we're able to do this. You know, we're punching our ticket.
Yeah, it was business as usual that week. But at the same time, we had that mentality, like you said, like we're going to go in and punch these guys in the mouth. Because we played some pretty good games. We just won the Cowboys game, I think. We beat the Patriots that year, so we were rolling. We won some pretty good games and played some tough teams. So our confidence was good. Mike had a good game plan. We wasn't scared of him, so we went in there and we did what we had to do, and we played a pretty good game, great game. So I think we did all we needed to do, and we came in there with that mindset that we're gonna punch these guys in the mouth, and that's what we did.
And I mean, yeah, for a good chunk of the game, that's exactly what happened, right? And you talk about that game, and Brandon, the reason I wanted to bring you on specifically too is I have some deep connections to that game as well. That game started this. It literally had made me pick up a camera and record for the first time ever a video about football, right?
Oh, that's dope.
Which will eventually do this. Again, sorry. Yeah, and in terms of just going forward, 1,000,001 things go wrong in that game.
Yeah.
You're talking about, you know, the field goal, the fake field goal that turned into a touchdown, Marshawn Lynch runs. You talk about overtime, and of course we talk about the onside kick. When it comes, I've read a bunch of interviews, and you sat down and you are very open about this and kind of talk about it, especially now, like further removed. I'm sure you have a different perspective on it. You talk about how they called a timeout, right? Because they didn't think everybody was ready for the onside kick. Yeah. It's so loud there in Seattle. What's kind of going through your mind? Because you're lined up with a bunch of other tight ends. A fullback is there as well, creating that wall for Jordy Nelson. Is the mindset, like, is your mind going 1,000,000 miles an hour? Or is there kind of a level of, I'm curious because you have a few seasons under your belt now, right? You're not a rookie anymore. I just kind of am curious of where you're at in your head before that play is about to occur.
That's a great question. Like you said, my mind I was calm. I was in it. Coach had just called timeout. I knew what I had. I knew, okay, I got this guy. I got L3. And that's what I had all season. We just did walkthroughs like the week before. So we did that play. On football teams, you do that play every Friday and Saturday before the game. That's like the last thing you do to end the game. And so we did that play all season. So it was easy. I was just going through the reps. Coach called timeout. Okay, I know what I got. I just lined up.
Yeah.
I was relaxed. I think I was just so relaxed that, okay, I did this plenty of times. I know what I got. Like, let's do it. But when the ball kicked off, it's like, oh shit, let's go get the ball. That's what I've done. You know, I was played receiver, and I was like, you're always taught to high point the ball. I'm saying high point the ball. I'm like, oh shit, I'm supposed to block this guy. So I was kind of in high point the ball, just out of instinct and reaction, go get the ball. But I have something else to do. That for my one time in my life, I have to block someone instead of go catch the ball. So I was kind of just reacting to what happened, and then kind of just forgot my assignment. I didn't do either. I didn't catch the ball, or I didn't block out. Yeah, so I'm like, what the fuck? So I was just in no man's land and just made a big mistake.
Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing, Brandon, and the reason why this is also prefaced with there's so many things that go wrong in that game, right? Of like, okay, we could start pointing out people and be like, yep, that was a blown coverage. That didn't work out. And at the end of the day, you're talking about the repetition that it takes. Because football and practice, just talking to a player, it's so much repetition.
So much.
Because people, if you are not in the game of football and have like watched the practices and talked to players and stuff, it is almost mind-numbingly repetitive. Because it's, hey, when you get to a game time decision, you're going to be able to make the right decision, right? Because you're just doing it over and over and over again. It's the last thing to do on Friday and Saturday. Okay, got to block this guy 100%.
Yep, got it. Easy. I've done it all year.
Yep, done it all year. And so at one point, you're supposed to block, right? You see the ball, and it's really awesome that you bring up that idea of like, I have this receiver background. I've read a bunch of interviews, and the way that you put it was, ball. I want to catch the ball because like I see the ball, it's hanging up there in the air, and it was hanging up there. And it's like, well, I'm just gonna try and go make a play because I'm gonna do that, and it's not hero ball or anything like that. So the play happens, right? The Seahawks recover it. before anything else transpires, that walk back to the sideline, what
Oh
is
man.
that like? Because that
Oh,
has
that's
to be the most, oh shit. Like,
yeah. That was the biggest. That was definitely my reaction. Like you just hear the stadium just going crazy. My head is down. I could hear my coach saying, "Bostick, Bostick, what are you doing?
yeah.
What are you doing?" I'm like, I don't know. I forgot to trying to explain it. I just walked to the sideline and I just sat there. The game is still going on. Coach
Yeah.
like, let's go. Like still, I think we're winning the game at that point. It was 18-13. We're winning, so it's like still more game to go.
Yep.
And still a lot to decide in the game. So, but at the time, I was so checked out. I didn't know what to do. I don't even know if I got back in the game at this point. My mind was just so, just so many racing thoughts. I lost the game. I felt bad
Sure.
about myself. Like I'm not gonna be here next week. There's just so many of these intrusive thoughts about myself came in at this crazy speed I never felt before. I was so overwhelmed with my emotions and thoughts that I didn't know what to do. But and I kind of just didn't remember. The last thing I remember was waking up in the locker room, everyone asking me questions. It's not like I fell asleep. My brain just kind of just, I guess, just checked out from being overwhelmed with so much
Yeah.
pressure and thoughts.
We're trauma blocking, baby. Like that's
Yeah,
because at that point, right? Everything, because there's that moment where, okay, the play doesn't work out. You made a mistake. It happens in football, right? And then there's many other mistakes that are made in which they march down the field, Marshawn Lynch scores, whole 9 yards. Trust me, I've seen enough of that game to know, right? We've all seen enough of that game. And when you get back to the locker room, is it just silence? Is it just
silence.
because I have to imagine the vibes before of like, hey, we're going to go punch him in the mouth. And for a good chunk of that
Halftime,
game,
we're punching him in the mouth. Yeah,
you were doing it. You did what you came here to do. And then to sit there and not be the cause of it, but to have played a part in it. And yeah, you made a mistake on a coverage. Is there just oh crap, like, all right, now I just don't even know what happens with this game that I worked so hard to get into to earn my spot. And now I'm sitting here, you mentioned before, of like, I don't know, I'm going to be here next week. Is that the kind of stuff that's swirling around in the locker room?
oh yeah, that's definitely. And there's so much silence and quiet. I just felt everyone just staring at me. All the cameras around me. I'm like, I never felt this experience. Never had so many cameras. Like you said, I went to a small school, so no one really came. Like the media and all that, I didn't really ever felt that before. Maybe one or two people might ask me questions, but this is the whole national media that want to ask me questions. And I'm sitting in my locker, like way back. I'm like, no, there's no way I can do this. I
No.
could just feel all the energy. And then I just got the courage. I'm like, you know what? I was always taught to just face it. You don't run from things. You don't run from your problems. You don't run from, just whatever. You just face whatever is there. And that's what I did. I'm like, I can stand up here for 5 minutes and give my truthful, what happened, how I felt, and why I made this mistake. So that's what I did. But I definitely could feel the pressure of just not being there. Like you said, I thought my career was over.
Yeah.
Like I felt like that's what I felt at the time. I knew it was over. I just knew that I let the city of Green Bay down. Like we lost the Super Bowl. There's all these crazy thoughts. So that was definitely a crazy point in my life and crazy feeling.
And like, dude, just to like a sidebar, like that is a massive weight. Like
Yeah,
to feel
yeah.
that and it to also
And to
come
carry that
yeah, from a game that you also love, because if you didn't love it, you ain't playing this game, right? Like
for sure.
there is a level of that. And I read too, you spoke to McCarthy afterwards. I think it was either after the game or it was the day after. And, he asked you, I think you asked, like, am I still going to be here? And they said yes. And then you asked him, was I the reason we lost the game? And he
Yeah.
said, and McCarthy said no.
He said no. Yeah.
Does that, in that moment, does that provide any like solace? Does that provide any like, okay, like does it relieve any of the weight that you're currently feeling after that game?
It does. It definitely relieves a lot of weight just knowing that I wasn't the reason that we lost the game. I just felt that pressure, because as a player, as a man, you own up for your mistakes. And I made that mistake. Like we were winning at the time, so I'm like, that's the reason I can carry that. But just like you said, it's a lot to carry, and I carried that for a while. But I don't carry that responsibility, like you said. I
Yeah.
look at it from a different perspective. I've seen the game. I've seen everything that's happened. So I've seen it and just put it all in a total different perspective. I look at it different. It still may hurt at times. It affects my life in some ways, but I just look at it different. Just try to always remember that he gave me that. Like it wasn't my fault. And there's so many other things that remind me. Players on my team, friends I have now. Like, it wasn't your fault. So it just gave me that validation I needed to know, so I don't have to carry the weight and responsibility of a Super Bowl winning team or Super Bowl contending team.
Yeah. I mean, well, that was the second question. Perfect transition, Brandon. In terms of just crushing it. In terms of the support system that you had within that locker room, did you feel at least like some support from, the guys on the team that you were close with of, hey, because people make mistake. I remember you tweeted, I remember this vividly, Ty Montgomery during the Rams game when he ran out of the, I remember this like it was yesterday. He ran out, right, fumble on that, on the return. And I think you tweeted at him like, hey, you need me, let me know, like keep your head held high. I've been there.
Been there for sure.
Was there kind of that comfort that you could rely at least on some of your peers and teammates who maybe didn't go through that experience, but I'm pretty sure everybody in the NFL has had a bad play at some point. This one just happened to be significantly amplified.
Yeah, there's definitely people that I leaned on. They just reminded me that, like you said, it wasn't my fault, and that just reminded me of all the things that I was. Because when you're depressed and when you're down on yourself, you always think about the things that you aren't. There's so many bad things. All you can see is the bad stuff. I didn't see any good about myself. So it just reminded me who I was and kept me up, kept me strong, and just kept me motivated to play football. Like you said, I remember you said it earlier. Like, football was something that I loved. After that play, I didn't love football. Like, my heart was broken. Like, I didn't want to deal with football at all. But it definitely helped me keep my love and kept me strong and kept me playing football.
And before we get into kind of talking about where your career goes after that, directly after the game, because there are multiple stages to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's the play happens, there's the direct aftermath with the media, your teammates, your coaches, right? But then there's a whole nother side, and that's the social media aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I read this in an interview, I think you did this a few years ago. You said that you read everything.
I did.
Every message, every comment, everything. And it was your way of saying, hey, I want to feel all of this so that I don't make this kind of mistake again.
Yeah.
First of all, damn.
That's one of the worst things I could have done.
Listen, I ain't going to sit here on a high horse and say that I have not gone on my own channel down the YouTube hole and be like, all right, these are really nice comments, but let me find the people that hate me, right? Like, let's go down there. Let's get that equilibrium. What is that experience like? Especially, you're talking about you are coming from a D2 school, right? You're coming from a small town. You get on the squad. You really don't have a lot of media. And now the whole state of Wisconsin and all over the internet, it feels like everybody is sending some of the worst crap that they could possibly send your way. What was those days after that game and going through that experience, taking it head on? How did that impact you mentally, emotionally? And looking back on it now, do you regret at least like diving that deep into the rabbit hole of that? Or do you have a different perspective of like, hey, I learned a lesson?
Yeah, I definitely I regret going down that rabbit hole. Just putting all those stuff and just all that stuff entering my brain, all the negative stuff about myself. Like, that's just too much to take on and overwhelm myself with. And eventually that caught up to me, Eventually, like, those things, I started to believe those things about myself. And someone tell you something over and over, like, eventually you start to believe it.
Yep.
Eventually your brain gets programmed to believe those things. So I got to that point in just years of doing that, and then I just got overwhelmed with it. I just reached this point of I was just so low in life and just so depressed that from that experience and reading all that combined together, that it was a crazy time in my life. But thinking back on it, I definitely regret reading all that stuff. It was hard for me to not read it, like you said, because I wanted to. I thought I was gaining an edge. I thought I was motivating myself, but really I was kind of just tearing myself down subconsciously, and just digging that hole deeper, just constantly beating myself up every day, reading that stuff. So, a lesson learned. You feel things and you learn your mistakes and you move on. You don't need to carry the weight of your mistake or carry the weight of whatever you're going through, or continue to, I guess, not grow and progress past whatever you're going through. So that's kind of how I live my life. I feel things and then learn, feel it, learn from it, and move on. I don't need to continue to carry things that aren't good for me.
Yeah, and they're coming from strangers, and some definitely, like, there was Packers fans in there, 1,000,000%, right, that were saying like very hurtful things. And was there a point, because we're talking about the stages, the social media aspect, and then was it 3 weeks later you find out you're getting released from the team?
Yeah.
And you mentioned something before, which is, you said you fell out of love with football there, right? Because football, it broke your heart at that point.
It did.
And to work as hard as you did to get to the point, to get a phone call, to have to switch positions, to learn how to play tight end, to grind and get on the team, to get to a point where you make one mistake on a national stage, and now the outcome is all negative, right? Like there are very few silver linings at that point, that first month, that first 3 weeks. You mentioned mental health before. What is your definition of mental health going through that at that time compared to something now, 10 years later?
Oh man, I was just so depressed and so unhappy with myself. I just carried so much guilt about myself, and so I just started, I just started not to focus on football. I started to get distracted with things that made me happy. It'd be drinking, partying. I partied with my friends all night, not really focusing on my career. Like when I got cut, I remember I was hungover from the next day because I was drinking out with my buddies all night in Houston. So when I got a call that I was released, I'm like, okay, like I'm wasted. Like, it doesn't really affect me.
Yeah.
I'm feeling that shit, but I'm not really affected by it because I
Yeah.
was drinking. So I just went on this bad path of just partying, drinking, just started distracting myself with whatever made me feel good. And that's what I did because I was just so hurt. Like you said, my heart was broken and I didn't have anything that I loved anymore, I guess. So my mental health wasn't in a good spot. Then they go on, and the Patriots win the Super Bowl. I think the Seattle went to the Super Bowl, and then they won it. What happened?
Oh no, Seattle! They had that heartbreak on the 1 yard line. That was the one solace I took, Brandon, because at that point, see, I'm petty, right? So the Seahawks do that to us. It's heartbreaking, right? Chris Pratt is cheering, and I'm just like, no, and they lose in heartbreaking fashion as well. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? We could all suffer together at least.
Yeah, for sure. But then I started reflecting. We had just beat New England early in that year, so I'm like, damn, like we would have beat New England and we won. So just all those thoughts. I'm like, no, like let's just stay, let's just stay focused where I'm at and just stay focused where I am. So my mental health wasn't in a good spot, and I had to love football again. Then I get cut, then I had to go to the Vikings. Like, damn, like I got to go to the team that Packers rival. Like these people are gonna hate me even more. Like, what are you doing? I didn't have a choice. Like it's not like I wanted to go there. My coach was like, you've been released. Like the Vikings claimed you. So I'm like, okay, guess I'm just going to Minnesota. Like then it added on even more pressure. Like I'm like, no, like people don't understand. Like you don't get a choice where you go. Like you're in this order and they claim you. So that's where I had to go. Like, but it was just so much even more on top of that. It's funny to look back on that now.
And that's your return to football, right? Like
that's my return to football.
First of all,
the last time I played football was on the
Vikings.
Packers. Yeah, was on the Vikings.
I mean, first of all, nobody should have to endure playing for the Minnesota Vikings, right? Like that's just one thing. But two, like what is you're talking about your relationship with football, and I'm really curious what it is now. We'll get there. But what is your relationship with football like when you're on the Vikings? Because like you mentioned before, it's a rival. There's already the Packers fans, which you've heard all from, and fans from all over the world. And now it's like, all right, well, this is like another shot of trying to fall back in love with football. I have to imagine that was incredibly difficult.
Exactly what it's like. And then they had just drafted a guy that year. So I was last on the depth chart. I didn't really love it. When I say love it, like I wasn't looking at the plays, like I wasn't working out. Like I just wasn't watching film. Like my priority of football was like last. I didn't care about anything else. So that's when I say I didn't love it. Like of course, when I was there, I gave my best, but like I didn't do any of the extra things. Like football was like very like a part-time job for me at that time. So that was just my emotions. I didn't really have any love for it. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't think I could catch. So like at practice, I'd be like, just scared to even put my hands out there because I don't know if I catch the ball. I just dropped the ball. So like I just lost all my confidence in myself. I lost all my skills. I lost everything I had. So I basically just had to start over, start from the bottom again.
That rebuild, because you would go with the Cardinals, right? You worked out with the Jets. You were on the Jets for a bit. Was there a level of confidence that was being rebuilt while you were at least, on those other squads Because like you said, all right, yep, we got to tear it down and we got to start over. You bring up the fact of like, I don't know if I'm going to catch the ball. I mean, dude, yeah, I don't even know how you begin to like get back to it. What is that healing process? And I'm just going to talk about football at this point. What is that healing process and building up that confidence like from a football perspective? And how long did it take for you to get to a point of like, okay, you know what? I am going to do a little bit extra because it's a game that I love again. Or did you not even get to that point through the remainder of your playing career?
Yeah, I got to that point. That's a great question, Tom. I got to that point maybe 2 years after. So, like you said, I was cut by the Packers. Then I went to the Vikings. Then I went to the Cardinals. Then I
Yep.
was with the Jets practice squad. So, like, that was maybe like a year and a half. So, a year and a half, I was just, like you said, rebuilding this. I went back to work. I started over, went back to my trainer I started with before I went to the Packers. So, I just went back to the basics, went back to day one. And that's what I did. Started working on my hands, started working on my speed again, started blocking. So, like you said, I just did a complete rebuild. And it took me 2 years to get back to where I felt like, okay, this is where I was at before I dropped the ball, you know. So I
Yeah.
didn't feel that moment until I made the Jets team that following year. So what, 2015 season
Yeah.
on the Jets, I didn't feel that until I like made the final roster like September 1st. I'm like, okay, like I'm back now. Let's go.
Yeah. It did that also, that has to help mentally too, right?
Yeah,
Like in terms of it's a lot of negativity. You're talking about like, hey, I'm gonna go hang out with my friends, you know, like we're going out drinking, like anything to not talk about this game that broke my
yeah,
heart. You know, at what point, because that's a long process, my friend, right? Of
yeah,
trying
for
to like
sure.
heal from that kind of stuff, especially the vitriol and hate that you got. How long did it take for you to just have like that intrinsic or that internal confidence where you're just like, okay, like, yeah, I can even just start talking about this again? Because I
Oh,
have to imagine for a bit, it's like, this one is a bit fresh. I
yeah.
don't want to talk about it right now.
Well, that's a another great question, Tom. I didn't looking back on it, remembering I didn't like when I went to all these different teams, like no one ever asked me about that. You know, like that was such a great feeling because I
That's
had that
great.
period. Like, damn, like I go to the Vikings, they're gonna be like, damn, you that guy dropped the ball. Or maybe they had those thoughts, but like went to the Cardinals, like no one ever asked me. I went to the Jets, like no one ever asked me that. So like it was much easier to heal, and not so I didn't have to carry that from team to team. It's like I
Yeah.
went to a different team that was like, you're here with us now. Like this is where you're at. Like this is where we are. We love you for who you are. Like put that behind you. So that's what I got. I didn't really get to start talking about this play until damn, ooh, 2020. I did a couple of interviews talking about it,
Yeah.
like when I got done with it, but I didn't really start to feel comfortable how I am now talking about it until like maybe 2020 recently.
Yeah.
COVID maybe. Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's only 4 years ago, right? In
Yeah.
terms of
So I
like
didn't really
that's the impact. And you talk about your relationship with football. I want to ask, did that incident affect your relationship with fandom or fans? Because
oh man.
before this, right, like you caught two touchdown passes, right? You caught a touchdown pass from Aaron Rodgers. And as you know, when you're a Green Bay Packer, oh, it is very communal in Green Bay, right? You're seeing
Yeah.
fans out of the grocery store. They are recognizing you. They
All
don't
around
care
the
where
world,
you
not
are, the
even if
depth chart.
yeah, wherever you are.
That's the beautiful part about Green Bay, Wisconsin, right? It really is communal. So how does that impact that incident and you get all of that hate? How does that impact your relationship with fans and with fandom as a whole? Even from as a, removed from football now, as a fan watching, any sport.
Yeah. Definitely create a lot of anxiety, social anxiety. Like people remember me for that. But I remember when I got done with it, like the first flight I ever caught, I had to get the guy my ID, and he's like, "Oh, you're Brandon Bostick." I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like, this is gonna go. I'm gonna carry this throughout my life. So I just had to know, like, change my perspective. Like, that's just something that I did. That mistake was something that is not who I am at the core. So I just had to have that perspective, and it definitely created a lot of anxiety in my life. Like, always wondering, like, do people know me for that? Like, do you think about that? Like, kind of scared to even be myself. Like, I'm like people from Wisconsin, like, I'm Brandon. Like, Brandon who? I'm like Brandon Bostick. It's like, oh, you're that guy that dropped the ball. So definitely create a lot of anxiety within myself,
Yeah.
having to just be myself and tell people who I am because of that play. So and just social media, like every time I say something, like it gives people a chance to say, oh, like work on your hands. I could be with my dog and like don't drop your dog. I'm like, bro, like this has nothing to do with football. So it
Yeah.
kind of gave me some anxiety, just social anxiety, just having to constantly worry about is people gonna recognize me for that. But I get a lot of good and bad. So I like you said, I'm definitely known for that, I guess, in Green Bay. But I've done so much good for myself and so much other people that I don't have to continue to carry that weight of that play and that mistake.
And you don't need to, right? And like
Yeah,
that takes time, like to
yeah,
learn that about yourself and just like get to a point with your mental health. You're like, hey, like I'm holding on to this anchor, man. Like I don't gotta do it anymore.
yeah,
Like that has to be a freeing experience, just internally of being like, okay, like that's a little bit less weight off my shoulders.
yeah. And I had to do that. That's one thing one of my good friends, Mark, told me. Like, you need to stop carrying that. You need to let that go.
Yeah.
And I remember to this day, I remember I told you it was COVID 2020, and I wrote this letter to myself, to Brandon, and I was apologizing to myself for all the things that I've maybe told myself subconsciously and all the things
Yeah.
that I maybe hurt myself, and not to carry that mistake anymore. So I came to this agreement with myself that it's not my responsibility to carry that mistake. It was just something I did. I can learn from that, and I can just continue to change lives in positive ways
Yeah.
and not carry that weight of that negative experience.
Well, I think it's also because at that point, because you're born in 89, right? You're
Yeah,
25,
89.
26 years old. You
Yeah,
know, when that play
yeah.
happens, my dude, like I've just turned 34 yesterday. Like if I was judged, you know, for a play when I was 25 years old. Oh man, like that's
Yeah,
tough. And so you have to go even your life after football, which you've done some awesome things we're definitely going to talk about. Like that has to be like you're still developing as a person,
yeah,
you know, and you're
yeah. As a
25
man,
and to face all of that, which let's be very honest, Brandon, like nobody can prepare you for that, right?
yeah,
Like no one sat you down and was like, hey, are you ready for the worst things to possibly be said about you for a very long time and by a lot of people? And the way that you handle that, I think there's only so many ways that you can. It depends on your support system, it depends on everything. But I think the other heartbreaking aspect of this is you worked for 25 years, right? Well,
yeah,
20 years, excuse me, you know, because you started with playing when you were 5 years
yeah,
old.
yeah,
You know, working for 20 years in a game that you love, that you're playing in the backyard, and you're saying, okay, you go to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and someone goes, hey, what's your name? And it's Brandon Bostick, and there's a reaction to it, and it's not positive. Man, like that's a tough thing to just work through. And like kudos and
still to
all
this
the
day,
respect for you to
for
doing
sure.
that.
For sure. Like you said, I've done a lot of work with myself, so I can be proud of myself. I can be proud to be Brandon Bostick. If you want to scold me for that, I can say I haven't made a mistake. You made a mistake. So there's so many different ways I try to heal from that and just change my perspective. And I maybe had maybe one or two people in my face that ever said anything like, "Oh, you fucking dropped the ball." So it's always usually just my anxiety or me overthinking it. Like people don't really think about it as much as I think about myself. So I had to let go of those thoughts and just, like I said, continue to work with myself, and continue to know who I am, and continue to be the person that I know I could be.
Yeah. And post Jets career, right? So once you're done with football,
Yeah.
after the Jets, did you know you were done?
No, I didn't know I was done. So, like I said, you remember I said I was partying, just doing whatever I
Yeah.
could. So I was partying the last day of the season. How are you partying on the last game of the season? We didn't make the playoffs, so it was New Year's. I was partying, and I failed a drug test. I was doing ecstasy at the time, so I was just doing like I said, I was doing all these bad things, drinking, partying.
Sure.
So that really ended my career. Like I said, I was just so down and depressed, and I just got caught up in that lifestyle, and just doing all these things. So that's how my career ended. I failed the drug test, and then I was a free agent. So. Um, I had that label, I failed a drug test. I
Yeah.
was, like you said, I was an undrafted guy. I didn't have this status. I didn't have the high profile as the other guys. So I had that on my record, and I was a free agent. So my career was kind of already on the back end. So that kind of ended my career. But I had two more tryouts. I just wasn't in the shape physically and mentally to even play. So I went to. It's funny. I could have played. I almost went to the Detroit Lions. Had a tryout with the Detroit
Brandon, come
Lions.
on, man. We're going around the
Matt
NFC North
Patricia.
now.
Yeah, I was funny. Matt Patricia called me and said, "Hey, he wants you to work out." I'm like, "I'll come." Like, I've been lifting weights. Like, football isn't really my thing, but I'm not going to turn down an opportunity for employment. Like, let's go.
Sure.
Go there, do the workout. It's like, we're going to run 21 sprints. I'm like, bro, I can't run that. I've
Yeah.
been just pumping the iron. I haven't ran. So, like, I'm not running, so I'm not going to embarrass myself. Like, I'm not in shape. So that's in my career. And I just say, like, I'm not dedicated enough to do this anymore. I'm not even going to fool myself or fool you. Like, my career is over. So that's what I know my career over. But, no, it's 2017.
So in 20, by the way, Matt Patricia Lions didn't really go so well. So I'm not saying that, it worked out, but I'm just, you missed some things. Not the worst thing. So the reason I asked that question is because going back to the mental side of it, when when your football playing days are done, right? Is there a moment where you're going, I got to figure out what I'm doing for the rest of my life now, because you're in your later 20s, right?
I was
You're
27,
still a very young person. And you're like, okay, I had this football career, and now what's next? What was that process like for you? Because that has to be terrifying. And that's something that a lot of athletes struggle with, leaving the NFL or whatever organization they're playing for.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest questions I had to ask myself. And also, I didn't have my degree. Like I said, I left a semester early, so it's not that I had a degree or like I didn't have a degree to fall back on. So I knew I had to go back to school. So, and I knew my football career over. I'm like I said, I've done this since I was 5. Like, what do I do next for the rest of my life? So that was a big question. It's like you build up this identity that football is who you are. Like it's all I've ever done. So my identity was tied to football. I was nothing else but the football player. I worn a jersey since I was 5. Like that's all I ever done. That's all I ever seen. So I didn't know anything else football. Football. That's what I thought. Obviously, I know all these other things, and I'm such an intelligent guy. I think, but I didn't think I know anything else football. All I could see was football. So it was definitely scary. That kind of just brought my mental health even down anymore because I didn't know who I was without it. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't go to practice. I didn't have anything to wake up for. I didn't have anything to work towards. I didn't even know who I was. Like I didn't even know what I was good at besides football. I didn't know what skills I had. I didn't have a resume. I didn't have a college degree. Like all I had was a 5-year football career in this football network that I created. I never had a real job before. I worked at the swing place once, and that was it. So I never had any real job skills. So all that was piled on, and my career is over, and that play happened. So it was just so much piled on me with my identity and just that mistake and just what was next.
Because that's also like another block to get over, right? Like even just coming to terms with like, hey, I'm not playing football anymore. I've done it for 22 years. If I started when I was 5 years old, right? I've been playing. You said it is your identity. At what point where you're like, okay, yeah, I'm not just, Brandon Bostick, the ex-football player. Like I'm Brandon Bostick, and now I'm going to start moving forward with the next chapter of my life. Because in a sense, that has to be healing. It just takes a while to get there.
Man, it doesn't feel like healing.
No, it does not.
Feels like turbulence and dark, just dark moments and not being able to see your future, not being able to see yourself as anything else. So I didn't really start to feel that until, man, like I said, COVID.
Yeah.
COVID opened my eyes, like, because everyone was struggling with COVID. So I didn't feel like I was the only one. I've been dealing with that play since, 2015. So I made the Jets team. I was still struggling, but I'm like, okay, I made the team. Like I can play a little bit. So my career over is like I had to feel that gut punch again. I felt that depression from the Seattle.
Yeah.
So I'm like, damn, I'm going to feel this for the rest of my life. Like this is where I'm at. This is my life because I don't have anything else going for me because football isn't there anymore. So it's created this depression. And then I had this anxiety for what's next and how am I going to live my life? Like what am I going to do? Like I just had all these things piled on at once. So I didn't really come out of that and start seeing um, like seeing my future and seeing myself as anything else until COVID when I really had the time to like check in with myself and I checked myself in treatment facility and really focus on Brandon the person, not the football player, and focus on my mental and my emotions. So I didn't really come out of that until like 2020 coming out of COVID.
Yeah, and like that, my man, that's 5 years after that play, and you're talking about like you're still going back to it of like, okay, these are similar feelings that I had like back then, and that is a horrifying question of, oh, is this is how I'm gonna feel? Like this is just in perpetuity forever?
Yeah.
And the work that it takes to like go on and try to heal from all of that is extensive. It's like you said, it does not feel like healing because it is work. It's just not one that you could do, in the weight room. It's one that just takes a lot of time and a lot of looking within.
Yeah, that's exactly you said it no better. It's taking a lot of time and you don't always see the results. You want to take some steps back. So and I had that athlete mindset. I thought that I can just work. I could just if I put in the work, you see
Just
the
work
results.
through it.
Like just work through it and you'll be good. Like some things you can't work through. I had to learn that as a man, as a person, as an athlete. Like you can't work through everything. Like some things you're gonna need help, you're gonna need support, and you're gonna need some things outside yourself that you can control. So, like you said, I had to lean on my support system, lean on the people that truly loved me for who I was. I
Yeah.
wasn't worried about Brandon, the football player, the tight end. It was about Brandon, the person. So I was leaning on those people, and those people helped me change my life.
Yeah. And to have that system obviously is going to help you get to that next stage of your life.
Yeah,
And it's awesome because what you have done post COVID and post your football career has been pretty great. In 2022, you get inducted into your alma mater's Hall of Fame.
hell yeah,
That has to feel so freaking good, man. Like,
yeah,
especially that's your next interaction with football. You talk about football breaking your heart, your experiences that you went through. They tried you as a player, as a person, and now like you are being celebrated by your school, by your peers. How was that experience for you? And did it help at least reignite some of that love for, man, all right, yeah, like that's why I was in love with the game.
yeah. It definitely did. I definitely had those feelings, and maybe remind me of all the great things that I've done. It's like one of those things I can remind myself. When I'm thinking bad, I can always lean on that. I can always lean. I scored 2 touchdowns at Lambeau. I can always lean that I graduated college. So it reminds me of all these good things about myself that I have. In my toolbox from when those tough and those hard moment comes in, I can always lean on like the football. I can always lean on seeing my Packers helmet. So I just kind of just capture all those moments and remind myself that all the good things that I've done. My dog is in here.
Yes, my buddy's
So I
laying on the
love him.
couch right now.
And
It's
he's like,
okay.
"Damn, Tom, I know I'm almost done, Marley."
Puppers
But
are
it's just
welcome, my friend. They
for
are.
sure just moments to remind myself of all the good person I'm in, all the good things that I've done.
Yeah. And again, it's something that's just positive, right?
Yeah,
Because it's your school inviting you back saying, hey, we want to honor you. Like, come on back. And it's also like kind of a return to where that you were in that game. You're talking about making the NFL. Like, okay, you're really thinking about it your junior, your senior year. Before that, like, would it be wrong to say, like, you're kind of playing for the love of the game? Obviously, you enjoy
yeah.
it and obviously you're good at it. But is it kind of just like, hey, that's the game element. You fall in love with it when you're 5 years old playing it, and that harkens back to a much simpler time where it was,
Mhm.
hey, I throw a helmet on, and I get to go catch passes and like go play football.
Yeah, it definitely did, and just like you said, it just kind of capped off my career. And I had a lot of moments from Green Bay. Like I got invited to games. Like I went to a Packers game,
Let's
my
go.
first time being in Lambeau, being at a game. So
Let's
it
go.
kind of gave me like some healing and some growth to remind myself like not everyone remembers you for that play. Like people are just excited that you're a Packer, just excited to be able to speak to you. You don't always have to bring that up in your head. So
Yep.
being there in Green Bay, like going in the Hall of Fame, going to Packers game, being around my Packers teammates, just talking Packers football, getting invited from you on the Packers podcast, and just all the things are just little moments of joy that just inspire me. To not really worry about the mistakes that I made, continue to be better, and continue to be a good person.
And the most admirable thing, Brandon, I think what's been great, and it's something that we're trying to do here, which, by the way, Brandon, since we've been talking, we raised over $1,700
Oh,
in the
nice,
not
nice.
even hour that we've been speaking to support mental health, which is super dope. Appreciate everybody who's been able to donate.
Sure, appreciate you all.
You have turned your path into helping others as well,
Yeah.
right? So that's where Sage Elite Healing comes in, right? Can you kind of talk about that a little bit and what drew you to that and that desire to help others, where potentially maybe there were some gaps in your support or just maybe there weren't these outlets or resources when you were a player. And instead of being like, all right, well, I guess that's it, creating those resources for players now or athletes.
Just going through my own struggles, going through that big traumatic experience on a national stage, I just learned a lot for myself going through that experience, coming out of that, coming up to COVID. So I just put all that experience in that work that I've done, and I just started to just inspire people because I feel like when I was going through it, I was the only one. Like my life sucks. Like my life is the only one sucks. Like no one else feels how I feel. I can't even talk to someone because they don't know how. Like they can't relate
Sure.
to how I'm feeling. But that wasn't true at all. So it kind of just gave me, I guess, a voice, and I started to see like other athletes talk about their mental health. I'm like, oh, like I could be doing that instead of just sitting here worrying about what people are saying, worrying about that mistake. I could be, giving hope to people who've been through what I've been through. Maybe they need some help, some hope. Maybe like my story could help some people. I'm just gonna start speaking about that, and that's kind of want to use my platform. It's kind of changed the perspective on how people looked at me. I just kind of changed the way I looked at myself. Like I didn't look at myself as that. I looked at myself as a inspiration and hope, and that gave me a much bigger purpose and passion. That's how I started Sage Elite, just telling my story, just coming out of that dark, deep depression, being where I am now, just putting in the work. And I just joined with this awesome person, Mark, and these awesome people that just wanted to help people and saw my vision and saw what I've been through and saw me come out of it. And just wanted to, just try to help people who are struggling. So that's how it came about. And that's kind of what I feel my purpose is now, just helping people who are struggling. Or if you're not struggling, if you want to, some advice about if you're going through something, or just advice about anything, I feel like I've been through a lot. I have a lot of experience, and I feel like I have a platform um, that I can, help people in any way that I can.
Yeah. And I respect the hell out of it, Brandon. Like, I respect you for, also doing the work, which is very difficult work to do, and going through all the things that you did. My final question I have for you is, you talked about this kind of love letter to football. It breaks your heart. You fall back in love with it again. You go back to college. You go in the Hall of Fame. What's your relationship with football like today? Is it kind of this? Is there a little bit of a disconnect? Is there a love that got developed as a viewer? And like, obviously you have a very unique perspective on the game as someone who has played. What is that like now for you?
I'm definitely a viewer. I look at it from a viewer's perspective. I enjoy it. And sometimes it's hard to enjoy it because I read into it. I see what they're trying to do. I know the formations. I'm kind of like how the Mannings look at it. Like, that's kind of how I look at it. Obviously not at the league level, but I see it from a player's perspective. But now I just enjoy it as a viewer. It was hard for me to watch football. It took me some years to heal, want to watch it. So it took me up into prior to COVID. Now I watch it. I enjoy it. I love being around it. There's some tough moments. I still carry the weight of that mistake,
Sure.
and the depression kicks in sometimes. But I enjoy football. It doesn't really. There's some bittersweet moments, but I enjoy it and love the football. I enjoy watching it. Little league, high school, college, NFL. So I enjoy it now. I didn't used to.
Good.
It was hard for me to watch it, but now I have more good moments than bad.
I'm very happy to hear that something that brought you joy in when you were 5 years old, and for you to go to an entire career, go through things that you went to, fall out of love with it, and then kind of come back around from a different perspective. It's a journey, man, right? Like, it's not a destination of like, I'm all better now, I'm never going to have bad thoughts ever again. But man, I just, a shout out to you. I appreciate you using your platform to help others. By the way, since we just talked again, we've raised over $2,000.
Oh, nice. Even more.
So,
I love you. I appreciate that.
Brandon, I appreciate you so much for taking the time to come on here to share your story. And where can people find you and the work that you're doing?
I'm at B Bostick, Boom Bostick 86 on my Instagram, and Bostick 11 on Twitter, and then SageElite.com.
Beautiful.
So I'll be at a Packers game this season. Hopefully, where you live now? Where you live?
I'm currently in New York, but I finally bought a house in Wisconsin, and I'm finally moving after the season. Finally.
Oh, nice.
So
nice.
Yeah,
I should be in New York next week. I'm going to the Jets game. I'll see Aaron.
Let's go. Oh, you go to see
Jets,
Aaron?
Broncos. The Jets are having their alumni weekend, so Jets play the Broncos. So
I love it. Yeah.
Man, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for taking the time, Brandon. Folks, again, 100% of the proceeds. This is going to be up until next Monday, this fundraiser. So if you're seeing this after the fact, feel free to donate. We raised over $2,000 an hour. A huge shout out to Brandon Bostick for coming on and just doing some chaotic good. But folks, thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. That's Brandon Bostick. And as always, go Pack.
Thank you for having me, Tom. Go Pack.
I appreciate you, Brandon.